welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Sticks and Stones Women's Talk Show. We are so excited that you guys decided to tune in on another conversation with us today. My name is Muriel, and I am here with my amazing co-host who's always holding down the fort with me. To my left, I have...
I'm Eartha, and glad you were able to join us again.
And to my right...
Hi everyone, it's Madeline. It's good to see you all again.
And our special guest who's decided to rejoin in on a conversation again.
Yes, my name is Colleen, and welcome to back again.
Awesome. So today, guys, we're going into the biblical codes. As you guys know, we had the brother code, we had the sis code, and now we want to blend it all together and just talk about the biblical codes. So a lot of the codes that we did before were more worldly, but you'd be surprised there's actually a lot of overlap with the worldly sis and bro codes versus now with the biblical codes that we're going to be bringing out. So what we're just going to do today, we're going to be pointing out some of those codes that we chose together that we thought were good synopsis, because in reality, the whole book, the whole Bible is literally a book of codes. And so we wanted to just choose 5 that we, wanted to basically sum up everything that we think is good codes that we can use with one another. So we're going to just get right into it, sisters. Y'all ready?
Yes.
This is exciting. All right. I am going to have Maudlene, you go first with the first biblical code, please.
So the first code is exhibit loyalty to those who you care about on a day-to-day basis.
That's good.
So this one, with loyalty, I actually looked up the definition because I feel like so many people don't understand what loyalty really means.
You're so good.
And so what I found, Webster Dictionary, is loyalty is the quality of being unswerving in allegiance, which I think is a bunch of big words. So I'm looking at it as
break it down.
Just being faithful and devoted to one another. And even looking at examples in the Bible, I thought of Ruth and Naomi as a wonderful example of true loyalty and just sticking by your sisters no matter what. That's so good. If you have the time, read that and really get to understand what loyalty looks like and how it should be exhibited.
That's excellent. I love that point. Yeah. What about you, Eartha?
I'm glad Maudlene pointed out the definition.
Me too.
So
I had the
case
definition.
You didn't know what it was.
Yes.
Now you do. But if we were gonna find examples, at first I wanted to find a woman, and I'm glad Maudlene brought up a woman. But there's only so many women in the Bible we can use. So, but we did say that the Bible is universal. Yeah. So, but the first person that comes to mind who is the ultimate example of loyalty and the ultimate standard is Jesus himself, being, loyal to what the Father sent him to do. And I know if we had to go through a verse, I'm like, there's not really one verse. At first I was going to say New Testament, but I'm like, if you really read it, the Old Testament as well lead up to Jesus. Yeah. So the whole Bible, you know what I mean? So Jesus is a good example. I thought of the 12 disciples minus Judas, right? Judas is not loyal, They all had to be loyal because after Jesus went up, they had to, propagate. He said, go and make disciples in Matthew 28, verse 19 to 20. You had to be loyal to keep that. And they were, once they accepted to come to him for the most part, I mean, I know the story of Peter and everything, but they had to stay loyal to him throughout, you know what I mean? Even after he went up. The prophets, at first they had their journey, but whether you had all of them, Elijah, Elisha, Daniel, just some examples, and we have some biblical references as well, they all, once they got the calling, I feel like they were loyal to that and stay, to what that calling is. So I pretty much feel that all of the protagonists in the Bible, anyone who's their story, eventually maybe some of them falter, but eventually they completed what God asked them to do. So you had to set some sort of loyalty to what your calling was. You know what I mean? So it was very hard to pick one example.
I know, it's a lot because
really.
It's filled with it.
It's the whole Bible, like you said. I agree.
That's amazing. So. Carlene, what about you, sis?
Well, with me, I think when I thought about it, because I think the ladies basically just mentioned everything that needs to be said about loyalty. It's just simple. Don't be backstabbers.
Yeah.
I feel like opposite of backstabbers is loyalty. Opposite of loyalty is backstabbers. Because I feel like once you backstab the person, you're not loyal. If you are loyal, you will do anything you can to not hurt them.
Right.
You'll be truthful to them. But I feel like once once you're not loyal, it's basically like a backstabber, meaning that you basically broke the code, you broke any promises you have with the person.
Yep.
Anything that the person trusted you with,
That's it.
makes you a backstabber when you don't follow it.
That's so true. And I think even the backstabbing was one of the points that we brought out in the sister code, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, you want to make sure that you have someone that you can trust, you know, that, like, we're going to use the word again to define the word, that's loyal to you. And I love the fact that, Modin, you had brought up the definition of loyalty, because I did too. Mine, you got it from Webster. I just Googled it. But another definition to add on to what you said is giving or showing firm and constant support or allegiance to a person or institution. And I think it's good that it said, you know, constant support. One of the scriptures that I had selected was Proverbs 17:17 that says, "A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." So it basically shows you that that scripture is saying, you know a true friend, or I like how it says, this is a friend loves at all time. But now a brother is born for adversity. That's basically like when you go through stuff in life, is that person there? Because a lot of times you'll find that when things are good, you have that person that has your back and that's with you. But then what about when things go left? What about when things go sour? Are you still having my back? You know, if I don't know, maybe if a rumor came out about me, or maybe, I don't know what it may be, but something about me was exposed. Do you still stand behind me, be like, no, that's my friend, I know they wouldn't do that, or that's my sister, that's not her character, so on and so forth? Or will you go with the crowd and be like, you know what, wow, that's who you are, I never knew you, and, you know, completely dismiss that friend? So I chose that scripture, and as well as Proverbs 18:24, "A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother." And just that idea of, you know, again, through situations that may happen, you're showing yourself to be that sister figure or that brother figure, you know, and that sometimes a friend is closer than a relative. And I remember we touched on that during like sisterhood, I believe, that sometimes you find friends that are even tighter than your own blood family members.
Especially if your family is not Christian.
Exactly. So I think those were like amazing points that you guys brought on. I love how a lot of them just overlap.
Yeah.
So exhibit loyalty to those who you care about on a day-to-day basis. And I think sometimes when we are around certain people that we care so much, sometimes we lack remembering to give that care, because we get so comfortable and we forget to be intentional about caring, you know? So that was I think those are great. That was my perspective. All right, Eartha, let's bring out the second one now.
All right. The second one we wanted to look at was make sure that your actions don't hurt yourself or others.
That's good.
There are plenty of examples in the Bible.
So many.
You guys want to look at soap operas, read the Bible. I feel like you guys are missing out by not reading the Bible, you know? Yeah. But I wanted, I chose an example I thought that was a good example. Abigail, who is I believe she's the first wife of David. Her first husband was Nabal. His name was Nabal. To put it plainly, he was a foolish man, right? There was some decisions he made that actually could have caused for his whole household, right, to fall. Because she saw that, her actions kind of reversed that a little bit. She basically saved his whole household, and David was so impressed with that, you know what I mean, that he married her. Unfortunately, Nabal, died, but she was able to become David's first wife, and that's found.
Unfortunately,
right? But that story is found in 1 Samuel 25. But I think that is a perfect example of how your actions, it's just by one man's actions affecting so many people. So but on the contrary, her actions on the positive end affected so many people and saved hers and their lives as well. And she was bold. She said, she could have gone before, him, and then he killed her. But similar to Esther, it's as if her thought was, if I perish, I perish, but I'm still going to take the chance, So I loved Abigail.
Love that example. Carlene.
When I read that, what first came to my mind is, I agree with it, but I realized that sometimes people hurt others because they hurt themselves. And I noticed that like nowadays, like for example in marriage, I'll like if a husband cheats on his wife, instead of the wife getting mad at the mistress. No, instead of the wife getting mad at the husband, she gets mad at the mistress instead. But I'm like, you should talk to your husband first. Why are you getting mad at a mistress? Maybe somebody you don't even know. Why are you getting mad at her? But I feel like because she's hurt, and that's why she wants to like make the mistress feel as bad as her, feel badly hurt as much as she is hurt.
Yeah.
And then that's why she does that. But I feel like I saw that in the Bible at one point with Sarah and Hagar, like how when Sarah saw that she was not having kids, how she encouraged Abraham to sleep with the servant.
Yeah.
And then after when the servant got pregnant, she got upset at the servant. And I'm like, and this is what's interesting about that. You encourage them to hook up, and you're gonna be mad at the servant.
Us women, we don't know how to make up our mind.
And from that point on, she mistreated the servant, and I didn't get that. But when I saw that, when I read that quote, I'm like, Sarah, you probably act that way because you saw that you couldn't have kids, so you're so upset, so you would make the servant feel as badly hurt as you are because you saw that, oh wow, she had kids before me, and I'm the one that encouraged it. So I think she regrets the decision, so she's heard about it, and wants to make the servant feel just as hurt also.
That is so good. So it's kind of like the world says, we hear it all the time, like hurt people, and even if it's not. And sometimes it's intentional, like you knowingly hurt someone, but sometimes because you so hurt, you naturally just flow in that hurt and don't realize that you are hurting people unless, people are telling you that you are, but when they do, if you didn't know, that's not an excuse now. If it's being brought out, now that gives you the opportunity to do what it is that you need to do, not necessarily to reverse the hurt, but to help with that healing process. That the person needs to go through, Maudlene, what about you?
Similarly to Carlene's example, I'm thinking misery loves company, and the women that I thought who did this, make sure actions don't hurt yourself or others, or rather didn't do this, is the prostitutes who came before King Solomon to figure out whose child is this. It was like the Maury show in King Solomon's court. And what I didn't understand, with the one whose child had died and then she was trying to pass off the other one as her child, it's like, for a fact that you don't care for this child. You have no plan of raising this child. You don't have any plans to see this child grow and thrive, because once King Solomon said, okay, cut him up, you were the first one to be like, yeah, cut him up, you get half, I get half. And I'm like, are you listening to yourself? Right. And so it's like, something bad happened to you, learn to accept it and stop trying to pass it off to somebody else. And I mean, this all transpired before King Solomon, but we also need to remember that everything that's happening here is also transpiring before King Jesus.
Right.
And he's watching over us and, trying to look at you like, you're not going to get away with this. King Solomon had God-given wisdom, but King Jesus is God. And he's like, you can't pull a wool over my eyes.
Right.
So stop trying.
Right.
And I think we need to do a better job as women.
Right.
Just to learn not to hurt others, but also don't hurt ourselves in the process.
That's true. Those are amazing, amazing points. In regards to like the scripture that I thought about is Matthew 22:39. It says, and the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And I think that at the end of the day, if there must be a lack of love for self, and that's why we lack not loving others properly, right? So basically that law is supposed to show that the same way you would want someone to treat you, the same way you love yourself and you want to protect yourself, we should be as, protective and as assertive to think and consider others. But I think many times, I should say, we don't think about how does this person feel, or how does this affect them, or how would I want it to be done to me? Like we don't think about that. We just want to do what we feel do what we think in the heat of the moment and not really pause and reflect and be like, wait, how is this gonna hurt them? Because in turn, it can hurt me, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I didn't write this down, but when you guys were talking, I think what you said in regards, you know, in misery meets company, or how it could affect other people, I think even like if we start from the beginning, right, in Genesis, how the actions of two people affected generations till now, it's like, it's a major thing. And even like in the scriptures, like, you know, our forefathers in the scriptures, certain things that they would do or not do, now we're still reaping, not positive, but the negativity in that, you know? So
That's deep, actually, because by saying that, because I feel like we don't think of the generations coming after us.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, for example, you could have had what we call generational curses,
Yeah.
but just by your action, you break a generational curse.
Right.
Or you do something that starts a generational blessing.
That's
so
good.
it's just like both for and after as well. So the actions are both,
That's
you know,
true.
relative to each other.
I think even like what you said with generations to come,
Yeah.
it's even as major as who you choose to be your spouse. Because now, what kind of person is that child going to see? What are you pouring into them? Because, you know, a lot of times depending on the type of relationships we get into, you find that there's divorce. And that divorce, it hurts you, the man and the woman, but if there's children that was birthed through that marriage, now it hurts the children. And there goes that generational issue as well. You know? And I've seen so many shows where I think one of the major ones, like on OWN, is Ayanla Fix My Life, where she would sit, Monday starts laughing, where she would sit down with so many different people and they're sharing like, well, the reason why I'm like this is because of my mother, or the reason why I'm like this is because of my father, or the reason why I like this is because when I grew up, this is what happened to me. So it just shows, like, you know, like this point says, make sure that your actions don't hurt yourself or others. And I think the problem is that naturally we're selfish people.
Of course.
And we just think about self, like, am I happy? Or what, you know, like those little things, instead of really considering how is this going to affect other people. And I think we can all, like, if you know, this is kind of like putting a mirror to the spirit to be like, oh my gosh, like I can do so much better in this area. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this is so good. I'm with number 3. It says use your natural talents and skills to make the world a better place to live in. What are your thoughts on that, Carlene? What are some points that came to mind for you?
Well, when I read that, I thought of, you know, everybody has a talent. Doesn't matter how big or small. You can use the tiniest little thing. It's still a talent. And an example of that, when I was looking at the Bible, I'm looking at Moses' mother, Yoshebel, the basket that she made when they were throwing the babies in the Nile River.
Yeah.
She put that baby in there, and who would have ever thought, that baby would have made it to Pharaoh's palace?
Yeah.
And how Moses would end up growing up there and be the deliverer for the Israelites.
Right.
So it's like, even though, to us it might be like, oh, just a simple basket she made, but, from all these years of slavery, all the things she learned, she must have used that into technique to protect her baby, and her baby ended up being the deliverer. So, and so when I read that, I just feel like, people might think that, I don't have anything. You have something that God gave you, and you use it, just to help others.
Right. I think that's that's what you said. And I like how it said, like, we phrased it, use your natural talents and skills, because sometimes we see other people's talents and we try to take that or try to become or adopt certain talents that was not naturally given to us. Yeah. And so that's why the importance of using your natural talent and skills is so important, so that you're not going in a lane that you weren't created for. That's not the gift that the Most High gave you. Appreciate the one that you got and allow this brother and sister to flourish in there so that it can bless you too. Maudlene, what are some of your thoughts on that point?
Well, one of the things that I feel God has been trying to show me throughout this year is to stop judging my success by the world's standards. And so, like you said, that idea of, oh, well, you do this thing, well, I want to do that too. And it's like, well, maybe God doesn't want you doing it the same way that that person does it, especially if that person is not following Christ.
That's true.
And so I was thinking of Joseph, right? And how nowadays everyone's like, oh, you know, get your MBA, do this, do that. And it's like, well, he became second in command in Egypt without going to a specific school.
Right.
It was just the gifts that the Lord gave him. He applied them in Potiphar's house. He applied them in prison. And then in the proper time, the Lord raised him up.
Right.
And so I think similarly, we should, you know, kind of stop despising our own gifts and talents in the position that God has placed us in.
Yeah.
And just kind of, you know, when the Bible says do everything with all your heart as if working for the Lord and not for man, because God is the one who's going to bring you success by his standard and not by what the world is expecting.
That's so good. I like that you said that, because you said just because somebody's doing it a certain way doesn't mean that I'm supposed to go down that same path. And I think with the example that you use with Joseph is that your road and your journey may look different, you know, because here's what I'm thinking. Let's be real in the society that we live in. I can go to college with somebody that is not my counterpart, but because his or her father has connections in a company, you know, I may have more experience, may have more knowledge, but because they have a connection, their process is expedited to a whole nother level, you know? And me, who may have all the skills, the talents, and so on and so forth, I had a completely different path, you know? And I think sometimes it's not maybe talents or gifts. Sometimes it's just experiences that build you up to prepare you for certain things so that you can benefit other people. You know what I mean? So that knowledge and that wisdom, yeah, I may not have a doctorate degree, but I have life experiences in this area. You know, maybe I don't have, like doctor behind my name or so on and so forth, but I've been married for 40 years and I know some stuff that you may not find in books, you know? So I see you were gonna say something.
Oh. I'm here listening, not only absorbing everything you say, but I think now, because you guys have already profoundly laid it out, I'm just piggybacking now, really. But I agree with every single thing, and I think what I had to say, I'm glad you chose me last, is a little bit of every single thing of three of guys' spirits working. So first one, the example I wanted to use was actually David. His whole life, I think, exhibit of using your natural God-given talents, right? For example, even something as simple as playing music, right? You guys can find that in 1 Samuel 16. Playing music, and how, for to tranquilize really King Saul. Something as simple as music, I thought that was great. God-given talent. Nobody else could play music like that for him. Something other, who would have thought like Goliath would have come 5 little stones? But because he's so used to working with the sheep and finding experience, that's what it's a little bit of everything you said, He's like, okay, you guys are afraid, I'm not afraid, because the Lord is with him. And then the final one, the fact that he was a shepherd, that only prepared him to become king later. He had to learn how to manage sheep and learn, you know what I mean? Have understanding, have patience, because that was only going to prepare him for the greater calling God had for him later. I think the biggest takeaway that I have from this is what you said, Sis Mio, was that stop trying to have other people's gifts, right? The one that the God gave you, no one can do it better than you. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of everything you guys just said. It's as if like your gift, like, God can use that to, just to shine, but because you're running after somebody else's gift.
It's so true.
So,
and one of the points that I said with that is the parable of the talents, because each had their own, the 5, the 2, the 1, right? And that one had theirs and they hid it, because he's like, well, they had more than me, whatever the reason may be. And so sometimes we will look at ours and we compare it to somebody else, and because we're comparing it to somebody who has a talent at level 5 and ours is 1, we think that ours have no value, and we think kind of like what Carlene says, you know, it can't be, you know, it can't be used, you know, like it doesn't matter, it's not as important, but every piece and every part is important, you know what I mean? So I think that like that's major, just being able to use our natural talents and skills. And sometimes maybe some of you are watching and you're saying, I don't know what my talents or my skills are, you know? And it's something that you naturally do. Maybe you do have a natural talent and skill, and because it flows so naturally, you just don't see it as that. But hopefully there's people around you that can be like, hey, this is something you're good at. And it doesn't always have to be a physical skill. It could be you are good at socializing. You know, you're good at analyzing certain things, or you're a critical thinker. You're good at solving problems. You have great customer service skills. You know, like those little things. Yeah, you may not be able to build a house or fix a car and sing or do hair, but the way your character, little things that you do, your smile, the way that you carry yourself, those are all gifts that people don't have, that they can be good with their hands, but their personality's a wreck, you know? So just some points right there for y'all. Carlene, do you mind reading the last one there for us?
Yes. So it says, make sure that your word has value.
What are your thoughts on that?
Overall, control what you say to people, because people have feelings. Like, try not to speak negativity, speak life. Because I feel like sometimes what you might say might come out in reality. And I feel like, you know, like for example with parents, when you tell your children, be careful what you say over them, you know, speak, you know, that they will be successful, famous. Because don't say, you know, they're a bad person or they'll never make it. Because sometimes later on in the long run, when you see them grow up, they might come out to what you tell them. So like I said, and also the child, they need to grow up feeling that, you know, they're special, you know, being told that, you know, that they are somebody. So it's not just a parent and child relationship, it's just everybody, you know. Just be careful what you tell them, because what you could say could come out in reality.
That's good. What about you, Eartha?
I agree. Words are powerful. We know that. I'm gonna go a step further and said not just your words, your whole demeanor in general.
Wow.
Right? Because sometimes your demeanor speaks volume, even if you didn't just utter any word. If we look at, for example, Sarah, I'm glad Colleen you brought up Sarah. Even when, you know, God told her she was gonna have, you know, a child, the fact that she smirked, you know what I mean? I mean, to me, she didn't have to say a word, just her demeanor alone said it all, you know? Right. To the words, Potiphar's wife lying on Joseph, saying that, you know, he raped her when he did. Just her words alone sent him to prison, you know, when it wasn't true. So just one word. And then the last one I had was Job's wife. When he was at his lowest, as his wife, instead of lift him up, she's saying, why don't you just curse God, you know, and die? Wow. So your words can either bring life or death to somebody or their situation. Really.
Right.
So that's powerful.
Maudlene, what about you?
I was thinking more along the lines of don't be a hypocrite.
Good. That's good.
So, like, speak the truth and demonstrate integrity through your words. I think it's in Matthew 15 that says it's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you.
That's good.
Because it shows what's truly in your heart. And so I think, you know, this idea of making sure your word has value, it's about, I think at my job we say what you mean and mean what you say.
Good.
It's about making sure that you are speaking truth, not just truth, but also important stuff. Like, don't just, you know, speak nonsense just to hear yourself talk, but like say something that can be helpful, that can be edifying, that's actually important, so that you're not just, you know, doing foolish talk for no reason.
I like the point that you said that your job has. It's like, mean what you say.
Say what you mean and mean what you say. Yeah.
And the scripture that goes with that I actually chose was Matthew 5:37. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. So if you say you're gonna do something, follow through with what it is that you're gonna do, you know? Because after a while, when people see that you may say some things and don't live up to it, then they feel like your words don't have value and you can't be trusted. So if you're the type of person like, oh, okay, I'll see you at 5, but you always show up an hour later, you begin to build up that stigma. Yup, that sister gonna be an hour late. That's CP time she's using. Don't trust what she's saying, you know? So little things like that is so important that we're making sure that, you know, we're meaning what we say and living and backing it up with our actions. So not only just saying it, but what we do really shows what we mean, right?
I think along those same lines, sometimes people like to say, oh, I promise this.
Ooh.
And that's one of the things that gets on my nerves. I personally don't like using the word promise because I feel like, you know, your yes should be yes and your no should be no.
Yeah.
And yet, in some areas of society, we've come to this place where when you say something, it doesn't mean anything. But if I promise it, it has a little more weight.
Yeah.
And then if I say I swear it, oh, then it's really important.
Wow.
But it's like, why are there all these different levels
Yeah.
of meaning to your words? It should be yes or no.
And I think those words probably may come into place because your original sayings lost its value. So because that's been scarred or that's been affected, you feel like now you have to put that add in that existence. Like, okay, this time I promise, because last time you failed and you didn't live up to that. Okay, this time I know last time I promised, but I swear. So
You're building up that reputation that you mentioned.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So the last point we want to bring up is basically to treat everyone as equal regardless of their social status. Help the less fortunate. And I think, and you know, as believers, many times people may look at somebody's outer appearance and they feel like, oh, because this person has status, they have money, they look good, then we have more pay, we have and pay more respect to that person than we do a regular lay man or woman. Because I know we're cutting short a little bit on time, Carlene, just like, what is a quick thought that you had on that?
Basically, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, that could have been you.
Yeah.
Like if you see the person, if you see somebody that doesn't look as great, you know, whatever it is, you know, still treat them with respect because you could have been in that position.
Right.
But God bless you, you know, to not be in that position.
Right.
So try to see if you can help the person to leave where they are to come to your level.
Right. That's good. Maudlene, what about you?
I totally agree. I was thinking of the example of Hannah and Penina in the Bible, constantly provoking her because, oh, I have children and you can't.
Right.
So just another example of things not to do. Stop looking down on people just because they're not at your level.
That's amazing.
And I would say, just to be quick, be a Tabitha and not a Pharisee. So Tabitha, read her up in Acts 9. You can read the whole story. But she always helped the less fortunate. But whereas Pharisees, I believe, they looked at the outer experience. It was all material things for them. They didn't look at the inner deep, right? And I feel like, in fact, maybe that's a whole nother show. We have a lot of Pharisees in nowadays churches, you know what I mean? Where you're looking at status, you're looking at certain positions, but not true relationship with God.
That's true.
Even dress.
Dressing. We're not even gonna go there.
That's
That's just a whole nother.
But that's
convo.
such a broad topic.
Right.
And, you know, treat everyone as equal regardless of their social status, because like the scripture says, I'm gonna really chop this up, but you can be entertaining angels, right? So you never know who, and they may be disguised as raggedy, but you don't know that is, you know, a messenger of God. Just because their current status may be low, you never know who or what the Lord can raise them up to be later on, and realize that they were actually a great person in the spirit, you know?
That could be the same person who helps you the next day.
Exactly. So guys, we would love to continue. We only had 5 points for the biblical codes. We hope you guys enjoyed it, got some insight. Maybe some points we made that you realize, hey, I need to do better in these areas. We can always, anytime looking into the scriptures, we can always look at it like we're looking into the mirror and see that there's always improvements to be done. So we hope that you were encouraged, and that some of these points are something you can definitely continue on and ponder and maybe have the conversation with somebody else. Thank you guys so much for always tuning in, being faithful. We hope that you have a great one and that you are blessed. Bye, guys.